Displaced is a survival crafting game where you get yanked out of your normal life and dropped into a fantasy world that's falling apart. The game's biggest selling point is arguably that pretty much every item you see in the game world has some use and can be broken down. The whole setup is pretty amusing actually. You're just chilling at home dealing with bills and a leaky roof when suddenly some portal opens up in your living room and the wizard tells you to jump through because the world needs saving. The whole hook of the game is that modern stuff from our world keeps appearing in this medieval fantasy realm, and the locals think it's all magical. You will find things like buses and other contemporary objects just sitting in the wilderness, which freaks out the villagers. You can even find modern weapons like shotguns or learn to craft fantasy versions of things like grenades. Gameplay wise, it follows the standard survival formula pretty closely. You wake up in this new world and immediately start punching trees and rocks to make some basic tools. There's a stone axe, then better axes, hammers for breaking down scrap metal, slings for range combat, shields and so on. The twist is that your tools have damage values and you need to keep upgrading them to break tougher objects. So you might see a rock formation or a chunk of corrupted material, but can't actually touch it until your hammer does 25 damage, for example. This creates a progression where you're constantly improving your gear to access new areas and materials. Now crafting and building is a big part of this game. You can break down almost everything in the world. Trees, barrels, crates, even entire buildings eventually. All that stuff becomes materials for your tech tree, which unlocks new recipes as you discover different items. You can make campsites with workbenches and cooking pots, build outposts, or construct full houses. The tech tree here is interesting because it reveals new options as you find materials, rather than showing you everything up front. So there is some discovery here that activates the good old dopamine receptors in your brain. The game world itself is split into islands. Right now in early access there are 3 out of 6 planned. That means you've got forests, beaches and caves with little jumping puzzles, villages to help defend, and areas corrupted by these enemies called Eternals. The main threat seems to be this cult group and the spreading corruption that's turning everything dark and hostile. So you're going to meet villagers who give you quests, though from what I can tell it's mostly fetch quest stuff. The combat exists, but it's honestly pretty basic, at least in my early experience. The game has melee weapons, ranged options like slings and bows, and you can dodge roll around. There are cultists and these corrupted creatures you can fight, but the animations are kind of rough and there isn't much depth. It works fine, but it's not the game's strong point. But it's also not needed to be the strong point. One thing that the game does decent is how the game encourages exploration. The game has plenty of treasure chests hidden around, optional caves, notes and lore bits explaining what happened. You then get experience points for completing mini achievements like chopping down trees or killing enemies, which helps with leveling up and unlocking more skills. The game does support online co-op, with couch co-op planned for later. Right now, according to the developers, you're looking at maybe 15 to 40 hours of content, depending on how much you explore and mess around with the building systems. Honestly, from what I can see, Displaced doesn't really do anything new or surprising, aside from the very competent item and crafting system. And this sentence concludes today's video. If your time was respected, a like or comment is very much appreciated.